Imagine living thousands of years ago in a world without cement, steel, or any modern technologies. No hardware stores, no construction companies, no power tools, just you, your hands, and the raw materials of the earth. How did our ancestors manage to create shelters that withstood time and harsh weather? The answer lies in something you might find in your own backyard: clay. Close your eyes for a moment and picture this: the first humans who decided to stop wandering and settle down. They needed protection from predators, from rain, from scorching sun and freezing nights. Looking around at what nature provided, they discovered that the earth beneath their feet held a remarkable secret. When wet, clay could be molded into any shape. When dry, it hardened into something surprisingly strong and durable. This wasn't just a building material, it was a revolution. Clay became one of humanity's most versatile and essential resources for survival. With it, our ancestors didn't just build temporary shelters, they created the foundations for the first permanent communities. Those simple mud structures marked the beginning of something extraordinary: the transition from nomadic wanderers to settled societies. What's truly fascinating is how these ancient builders, without any formal training or scientific knowledge, discovered techniques that architects still study today. They mixed clay with water, added straw or animal hair for strength, and created structures that would stand for generations, some of which have survived for thousands of years and can still be explored today. In this video, we're going to journey back through time to uncover how this humble material, clay, changed the course of human history. We'll explore the ingenious methods our ancestors developed, the surprising durability of their creations, and how these simple structures laid the groundwork for the first great civilizations. If you love history and want to unravel the mysteries of humanity's greatest achievements, hit that like button right now, subscribe to the Dawn of Humankind channel, and make sure to turn on notifications so you don't miss a single episode of our exploration into the innovations that shaped our world. So how exactly did our ancestors figure out how to build with clay? Imagine being the first person to scoop up a handful of mud, feeling its texture change as it dried on your fingers, and thinking, "I could build something with this." These early builders were true pioneers of architecture. Through trial and error, they discovered something remarkable. When clay was mixed with water and natural fibers like straw, grass, or even animal hair, it created a material that could be shaped and molded into surprisingly resilient forms. This wasn't just mud anymore. It was one of humanity's first building composites. One of the earliest and simplest techniques was what we now call cob construction. Picture this: men, women, and children all working together, mixing clay soil with water until it reached just the right consistency, then adding straw or other plant fibers to give it strength. They would then shape this mixture with their hands, building up walls layer by layer, almost like sculpting a massive pottery vessel. As each layer dried and hardened in the sun, they would add another on top. In regions where the climate was particularly dry, like ancient Mesopotamia around 8,000 years ago, they developed another ingenious technique. They would form the clay mixture into uniform blocks, leave them to bake in the hot sun until they hardened, and then stack these blocks to create walls. These were the world's first bricks, created thousands of years before the first kiln-fired brick. Another common approach was called wattle and daub. First, they would create a framework of interwoven sticks and branches, the wattle. Then they would apply their clay mixture, the daub, coating both sides of this wooden skeleton. Once dry, this created walls that were both sturdy and provided excellent insulation against the elements. What's truly fascinating is how these builders, working purely from intuition and observation, understood the properties of their materials so well. They noticed that these clay walls had remarkable thermal properties, keeping interiors cool during scorching days and retaining warmth during cold nights. They discovered that adding more straw made the mixture lighter but still strong, while adding crushed shells or small stones could make it more durable against rain. In places like the ancient settlement of Çatalhöyük in what is now Turkey, archaeologists have found evidence of houses built entirely from mud bricks around 9,000 years ago. These weren't crude shelters, but sophisticated homes with plastered walls, built-in furniture, and even decorative elements, all made possible by the versatility of clay. And here's something that might surprise you. These ancient techniques weren't just effective, they were sustainable. Unlike modern concrete that produces massive carbon emissions, these early clay building methods had virtually no environmental impact. In fact, many environmentally conscious architects today are returning to these ancient methods, recognizing their brilliance in both simplicity and sustainability. Now, you might be looking at these ancient clay dwellings and thinking they must have been fragile, temporary solutions, merely a stepping stone until our ancestors discovered real building materials. But that assumption couldn't be further from the truth. What's truly remarkable about these seemingly simple structures is their extraordinary durability. When clay dries under the scorching prehistoric sun, it forms a surprisingly resistant layer, one that could withstand the test of time in ways that might shock modern builders. These ancient architects discovered something fascinating through generations of trial and error. By adding straw to their clay mixtures, they created what we might now recognize as a primitive form of reinforced material. The straw fibers acted much like the steel rebar in today's concrete, distributing tension throughout the structure and preventing cracks from spreading. In regions where straw was scarce, they would use small stones, animal hair, or even crushed shells to achieve similar strengthening effects. The results were astonishing. These weren't temporary shelters, but homes built to last for generations. In particularly dry climates, these structures proved nearly indestructible. The clay walls, often built several feet thick, created natural insulation that kept interiors remarkably comfortable, cool during scorching summers and warm during cold desert nights. Here's something that archaeologists find particularly fascinating. Many of these ancient builders developed techniques for waterproofing their clay structures. In some regions, they would apply natural oils or animal fats to exterior surfaces. Others would create sloped roofs with overhanging edges to direct rainwater away from walls. Some communities even developed specialized clay mixtures that became more water-resistant with age. Would you believe that some clay structures built over 5,000 years ago are still standing today across the Middle East? In places like Shibam in Yemen, often called the Manhattan of the desert, buildings made primarily of mud brick rise 8 stories high and have been continuously inhabited for over 2,000 years. The ancient city of Argebam in Iran, constructed almost entirely from clay and mud brick, stood for nearly 2,500 years before it was damaged by an earthquake in 2003. Even more impressive are the structures at Taos Pueblo in New Mexico, built from sun-dried clay bricks around 1,000 years ago. These multi-story adobe buildings have been continuously inhabited for centuries, making them some of the oldest continuously occupied dwellings in North America. The residents still maintain them using the same techniques their ancestors developed centuries ago. What these archaeological treasures teach us is profound. Our ancestors weren't just surviving, they were innovating and engineering solutions that would stand the test of millennia. They didn't have advanced materials science or structural engineering degrees, but through careful observation and intergenerational knowledge, they created buildings that modern architects still study and admire today. Perhaps most impressive of all is how these structures have weathered time, not through resistance to the elements, but through adaptation and community care. These clay buildings require regular maintenance. New layers of mud plaster applied after heavy rains, cracks filled, surfaces smoothed. This wasn't seen as a burden, but as a community ritual, often accompanied by celebrations and ceremonies that strengthened social bonds. In this way, these ancient clay homes weren't just physical shelters, but living monuments to human cooperation and ingenuity. Structures that have survived not despite their simplicity, but because of the elegant solutions their builders discovered thousands of years before modern architecture was born. The ability to build permanent shelters didn't just change how our ancestors lived, it transformed who they were. Imagine the profound shift in human consciousness when, for the first time, people could stay in one place without fear of their shelter washing away with the next heavy rain or collapsing after a few months. This revolutionary change in construction capability marked one of humanity's greatest turning points. For hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors had been nomadic hunters and gatherers, following animal migrations and seasonal plant growth. Their temporary shelters, made from branches, animal hides, or shallow caves, limited them to a wandering existence. But once they mastered clay construction, everything changed. With durable clay homes that could withstand years of weather and wear, communities could now put down roots, literally and figuratively. They began to settle in strategic locations near reliable water sources, fertile soil, and natural resources like clay deposits and forests. Think about what this meant. For the first time, humans could invest in a place, improve it over generations, and build something that would outlast their own lives. This shift to permanent settlement triggered a cascade of innovations that would forever alter human history. Freed from the constant need to relocate, people could now cultivate crops instead of merely gathering wild plants. They could observe growing cycles, learn to irrigate, and develop agriculture, one of humanity's most transformative technologies. In places like Jericho, one of the world's oldest continuously inhabited cities, we can see how clay architecture and settlement went hand in hand. More than 10,000 years ago, its inhabitants built impressive mud brick structures, including a massive stone wall with a mud brick tower that still stands today, the oldest known defensive structure in human history. The ability to store food surpluses in clay structures led to other profound changes. Villages grew into towns, specialized labor emerged, and social hierarchies developed. Some individuals could now devote their time to crafts, art, religious leadership, or governance rather than food production, leading to increasingly complex societies. Perhaps most fascinating is how these permanent settlements fostered the development of trade networks. Clay pots, made from the same material as their homes, became the first standardized containers for transporting goods. Communities began specializing in different crafts and products, trading with neighboring settlements. This exchange wasn't just economic. It spread ideas, technologies, and cultural practices across vast regions. The archaeological record shows something remarkable. Many of the world's earliest major civilizations, Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, and ancient China, all rose in regions where clay building techniques first flourished. It's hardly coincidental that the cradle of civilization emerged alongside mastery of clay architecture. In Mesopotamia, simple clay settlements eventually grew into the world's first cities, like Uruk and Ur, where the earliest writing systems developed on clay tablets. In Egypt, mud brick buildings predated the famous stone pyramids by thousands of years, providing the architectural knowledge that would later enable monumental construction. This connection between clay construction and civilization's birth reveals something profound about human progress. Sometimes the most transformative innovations aren't flashy new technologies, but fundamental changes in how we relate to our environment and each other. Did you know that clay was one of the foundational pillars for the emergence of the first cities? If you're enjoying this video, please like, share, and subscribe to the Dawn of Humankind channel for more incredible stories. And tell us in the comments, have you ever used clay for any construction or art projects yourself? You might think clay construction is just a relic of our ancient past, But here's something fascinating. This prehistoric building material is making an incredible comeback in modern architecture, and the reasons might surprise you. In an age of climate crisis and environmental concerns, architects worldwide are rediscovering what our ancestors knew thousands of years ago. Clay is one of the most sustainable building materials on Earth. Unlike concrete, which accounts for about 8% of global carbon emissions, clay buildings have virtually no carbon footprint. They can be built using local materials and can be completely returned to the earth at the end of their life cycle. But sustainability isn't the only reason clay is experiencing a renaissance. Modern architects are amazed by its natural properties. Those same thermal regulation capabilities that kept our ancestors comfortable are proving invaluable in our era of rising energy costs. Clay walls naturally maintain indoor temperatures, reducing the need for artificial heating and cooling by up to 40% in some cases. In places like Austria and Germany, cutting-edge architects are combining ancient clay building techniques with modern technology. They're creating what they call smart clay buildings, structures that incorporate traditional mud brick construction with contemporary design elements. These buildings aren't just environmentally friendly. They're stunningly beautiful, challenging our preconceptions about what Earth architecture can look like. Take the work of Iranian architect Nader Khalili, who revolutionized modern clay architecture with his super adobe technique. Using simple earth-filled bags and barbed wire, he created structures strong enough to pass California's earthquake codes. His designs have been used to create emergency shelters in refugee camps and have even been studied by NASA as potential housing solutions for Mars colonies. In Africa, the legacy of clay architecture is being reinvented by architects like Francis Kéré, who combines traditional mud building techniques with modern engineering to create schools and community centers that stay cool in the scorching heat without air conditioning. His buildings prove that sometimes the most innovative solutions are rooted in ancient wisdom. Perhaps most exciting is how clay construction is being embraced in urban environments. In cities from London to Shanghai, architects are incorporating rammed earth walls and clay plasters into contemporary buildings. These aren't just eco-friendly choices, they're creating healthier living spaces. Clay naturally regulates humidity and filters air pollutants, making it ideal for our increasingly polluted urban environments. The story of clay architecture is coming full circle. What began in prehistoric times as a simple solution for shelter has evolved into a sophisticated answer to some of our most pressing modern challenges. As we face the uncertainties of climate change and the need for sustainable development, the humble clay that sheltered our ancestors might just help us build a better future. And here's a thought that would surely amaze our prehistoric ancestors. Some architects are now using 3D printing technology to create clay buildings, combining ancient materials with futuristic methods. The past isn't just inspiring the future, it's helping to create it. Like our ancestors who discovered the remarkable properties of clay thousands of years ago, we're still learning new things about this incredible material. But this time, we're not just building shelters. We're building a more sustainable world for future generations. Would you consider living in a modern clay house? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if you're fascinated by how ancient wisdom is shaping our future, make sure to subscribe to The Dawn of Humankind for more amazing stories about human innovation. As we reach the end of our journey through time, it becomes clear that clay was far more than just a building material. It was the foundation upon which human civilization itself was built. Think about it. This simple substance found beneath our feet enabled our ancestors to create something revolutionary, permanent homes that would shelter generations. The story of clay is really the story of human ingenuity and cooperation. Without modern tools, without advanced technology, without even a written language to pass down instructions, our ancestors discovered how to transform Earth into lasting shelters. They did this not through individual brilliance, but through collective wisdom, shared experience, and community effort. Every clay brick, every mud wall, every earthen structure they built tells a story of human creativity triumphing over limited resources. These ancient builders remind us that the greatest innovations don't always require complex technology. Sometimes the most powerful solutions come from understanding the simple materials nature provides. When we look at the ancient clay structures that still stand today, from the towering buildings of Shibam to the enduring walls of Çatalhöyük, we're not just seeing old buildings, we're seeing the physical evidence of humanity's first great leap forward. These structures tell us that when people work together, sharing knowledge and supporting each other, they can create something that outlasts their own lives by thousands of years. Perhaps that's the most powerful lesson our prehistoric ancestors left us. With creativity, cooperation, and determination, humans can build remarkable things that stand the test of time. Even with the simplest of materials, we can create lasting monuments to human potential. Before we end this journey through prehistoric innovation, I want to thank you for exploring this fascinating chapter of human history with me. If you've enjoyed learning about how our ancestors transformed mud into civilization, please hit that like button. It really helps our channel reach more history enthusiasts like you. Share this video with someone you know who's interested in ancient technology or sustainable building. You might just inspire them to look at mud in a whole new way. And if you want to join us for more adventures in prehistoric innovation, subscribe to the Dawn of Humankind and ring that notification bell. We have so many more amazing stories to share about the ingenious ways our ancestors shaped the world we live in today. Did any part of this clay construction story surprise you? Let us know in the comments below. We love hearing your thoughts and insights. And stay tuned for our next episode, where we'll explore another fascinating chapter in the story of human innovation. Until next time, remember, every handful of clay holds the potential for something remarkable, just as it did for our ancestors thousands of years ago. See you in our next prehistoric adventure.